that unrest is also something that the left wants. Because then, once the country is engulfed in street war, they have an excuse to clamp down with their authoritarian measures, which is what they want to do in the long run anyway. And so there's no downside as far as they're concerned. The only thing that they haven't counted on is the fact that ultimately there's only going to be those two left. And then who wins? Khomeini, the Ayatollah Khomeini, when he established the Islamic Republic of Iran, had the Tudeh party, the communists in Iran, as his strong allies. And they were very happy when he took over and thought that they would play a role in his new government. And instead, he established an Islamic Republic and put them all in prison and killed them. And I suspect that's what will happen in Europe and North America as well. But the left thinks they can ride the tiger, and they don't realize that they're dealing with an entity that has been playing this game for 1,400 years and is far more tenacious and far more sophisticated and skillful in manipulation than they're given credit for ordinarily. And so perhaps it's morbid to speak about that those two will have to fight it out. I'm still hoping that we will head that off. But I think that the left is being a little bit too sanguine about what the prospects will be if they do defeat the patriots.
Yeah.
Could I say that what Robert said about violence always follows? You know, that bit about history that I've been subjecting you to is not just the history of some other place. It's the history here. What we're here for, what we're talking to you about, is not just this Axis alliance, whatever you want to call it. It's not just, the two, I would argue, the three elements, and we might talk a little bit about what the globalists are contributing to all this too, but it's here. And so when you talk about, and I think this is a tremendously important point, Robert, when you talk about the inevitability of violence, you must think about this as violence that will be inflicted in our communities too, inexorably, eventually, maybe sooner, maybe later. But it does not benefit from the perception that they are winning. And you might want to pick up on this point, Robert or Trevor. When they are not defeated, they consider that a win. What Donald Trump would describe as, he's obliterated the Iranians. They were not the nuclear weapons program, certainly not their regime. They're still a going concern. And I can tell you that those jihadis in Texas are heartened by what they have seen. Even their enemies, the Iranians, pulling off in the way of a victory and seeing as the lack of their defeat as evidence of the inevitability of Israel's and ours.
And
open your Quran to chapter 8, you can read in verse 39, fight them until persecution is no more and religion is all for Allah. So that's two parts. Persecution is no more is defensive. And a lot of Muslim apologists in the West will tell you jihad is only defensive. If you don't attack, then they won't bother you. But that's not the end of the verse. Fight them until persecution is no more and religion is all for Allah. If you're minding your own business and your religion is not for Allah, then one day some jihadi might decide that you have to be next.
Your lunch.
And this war does not end.
You did all bring your Qurans, didn't you? You actually don't need them if Robert is around because he can recite the whole thing.
Chapter 8, verse 39. It's also in chapter 2, verse 193.
Page 365.
Chapter 8, verse 39, and chapter 2, verse 193.
So,
fight them until persecution is no more and religion is all for Allah. Allah.
Allah.
I want to make another point. When you talk about Sharia supremacy, Frank, and there are those who would say you shouldn't talk about it in terms of Sharia supremacy. It's Islam. Don't belittle the fact that it's Islam. But talking about it as Sharia supremacy seems to do at least two things. One, it notes that it's a supremacist ideology, that it seeks totalitarianism, but it's easier in the United States of America to address an ideology such as that rather than a religion. Is that
Well, it's
part
not
of
so much the ease of the addressing of it, I think. And again, I would defer to Robert on all of this because this is really his thing. I would just say that if you go at this problem as one strictly of it being Islam, or even if you wish, authoritative Islam, there isn't an American in this country, I would wager, who's going to tell you that that's not a religion. And it follows from that for most people that, well, it may have these, unsavory characteristics, but if it's a religion, we have a constitutional guarantee you can
yes.
practice it. And the challenge for us is to say, look, there are things that you cannot legally do in this country that are not only countenanced by this religion, but that are obligatory. And if you are going to give that all a pass, you are inviting not only submission, but, criminal conduct on an epic scale, especially, by the way, towards women, but not exclusively. So I'm not under any illusion that this has anything to do with something other than Islam. Of course, it's an Islamic doctrine, or as I think Robert called it, Islamic law. But it's more than law. The term, as I understand it, literally translates into the path or the way to the water, some say. It's a whole way of life, is how they describe it in some texts. And that way of life is not a religion. Robert said this very well at the beginning. It's masquerading as one. But it is, in fact, it's got a patina of religiosity to it, yes. What you eat, what you don't eat, which direction you pray in, how often you pray, what you say when you pray, and all that stuff. That may not be our thing, but that's not objectionable in its own right. They start making everybody else eat halal meat
Right.
or the like. That's a different thing. But that, I think, can be differentiated from all of the very objectionable stuff that is, according to the authorities of Islam, part and parcel of the practice of the faith, that is Sharia. And so I think this helps us enormously in educating people about the fact that, yes, there are Muslims who do not want to follow Sharia, who do not want to impose it via jihad or other ways, which is what they're required to do. Robert and I had a conversation about this earlier today. You just don't hear a whole lot from those folks because there's a name for them in the lexicon of the authorities of the faith. They're called apostates. And that is a capital offense that, as I understand it, can be carried out by any Muslim, essentially with impunity, on their own say-so. So these guys generally keep their heads down so they don't lose them. And that means that it's all the more important that I think we find a way that can differentiate between them and those that are genuinely jihadi and the problems and that don't have the protection of a faith
Right.
under our Constitution.